Right, so this presentation is a presentation I've given a couple of times actually. First to the local nature recovery strategy board, which was intimidating, and then, oh, as it says on this slide, I didn't change it, to the local nature partnership group on people and nature. So it's had a bit of an airing, and we've had some really fantastic feedback from it. So it's an idea that Evelyn and I and a few friends have been putting together. It's very much a sort of citizen-led idea. I should say what it's not. It's not. We're not looking at sort of creating new areas of land designated in a way that they're not already. This is very much sort of an organic thing, and we'll explain it as we go along. So we introduced ourselves already, so I won't go through that again. Evelyn, did you want to say anything else about yourself that you hadn't already said in your intro? You're going to come back to it anyway, aren't you?
Yes, I mean, just to say that the community focus I bring is as the co-founder of Friends of the Fields IFLI, but also of an organisation called Only One Oxford to bring together other groups of residents protecting their green spaces, and to have a wider view using donut economics of what are the economic drivers behind our multiple crises, and how might we use a really accessible framework cross sector to look at things differently, to think differently. Yeah.
Thank you. Right, so what is the Oxford Nature Park? So what we're looking to do is to kind of recognise the totality of all the connected spaces for wildlife across ownership. So basically ignoring the concept of human ownership of land. And we want to do this because it's going to be it's a vital joined up habitat for wildlife, and also as a kind of rich resource for humans to enjoy and learn from, particularly school students and people from the community. So the idea is to create a sort of citizen produced map of green spaces, perhaps using the LNRS map, which I'm sure you're all familiar with from their consultation as a starting point. I'm sure that'll be being shown at their launch in November at the Natural History Museum. So the idea is to have a map that communities can add to areas that they know, the wildlife they observe, then the nature connection projects they might be involved with. So very much sort of just giving people the opportunity to continuously add spaces, and not necessarily spaces that have public access. It might be the alleyway that they walk to school along, or their own garden, or somebody else's tree. So basically it's kind of guerrilla mapping, if you like, of any spaces that people enjoy, including maybe walls with ivy on, as I'll come back to in a minute. And this will give an overarching view for species habitat, connectivity, also looking at management approaches and educational opportunities and other nature-based solutions that are linked with having green spaces in a city. And to go along with this, what we're working on at the moment is a nature education strategy, looking at how we can connect the multitude of kind of nature experts across the county with the schools, when that connection is very weak at the moment, and we're looking at ways in which we can make that better. So why would this be useful, this idea? So we're looking to enthuse and engage the local community and young people in particular about and with nature in their part of Oxford. And I put NB, the new voting age. I do think this is a fantastic opportunity to engage with our secondary age students, because most anybody who's in year 8 and up will now be voting in the next election. So this is a really good opportunity to start influencing them. I crunched some numbers and found that there was something like 4.6 million people in secondary schools at the moment who could be voting across the country, who will be voting in the next election, hopefully, if they register. So it's a really good opportunity to get them enthused. Also, to give some visibility and protection to the integrity of the nature hotspots and this whole lacework of nature spaces across the city. There's been a field in Marston that's has been an amazing field with old ant hills and hedgerows and nesting whitethroats and things, which has been monitored by local people, which has just been destroyed over the last few days by a bulldozer. Whether that's a BNG issue, I don't know, but if that had been on a map and people were more aware of it, perhaps that would have given more protection to it. And thirdly, to enable schools to offer nature education, in particular the new GCSE in natural history, to allow them to do it using local spaces. So Martha mentioned the National Education Nature Park. This is a Department for Education project which is trying to get all schools across the country to improve biodiversity on their own grounds, partly for well, for wildlife itself, but also for education and also for the well-being of students and the staff and the whole school community. Um, the thing is, with teaching the GCSE and other nature education, is that there is not going to be enough biodiversity in the school grounds in time. So therefore, if schools can use their very hyper local spaces, that has huge benefits for the school, but also for those local spaces when the kids start getting to know them and understand their value in greater depth. And then there's all those co-benefits, well-being opportunities for the community, social cohesion through shared pride in local spaces, and then urban heat and flood management. So I wanted to talk a little bit about nature as educator. Um, I thought a lot about this and quite a lot of writing about this, and it's becoming clearer that there are some real kind of business case, if you like, for to use nature as part of the education system. Um, and I've worked with a lot of teachers and thought about what they're doing actually influences what their kids are learning and how they're learning. Um, so in terms of knowledge, teachers that take their kids outside into nature for any subject, whether it be English, maths, physics, biology, all of them say it's really, if they know what to do, that it's really helpful to give their students a real world context. So they might be doing Macbeth under the trees or doing drumming sort of at the far end of the playing field, whatever it might be. There's a real way to use nature to actually enhance their teaching, whatever the subject is. It's also really helpful to give students a kind of solutions focused knowledge, particularly this is relevant for future careers. I'm doing this week. I've got a group of work experience students from the Charwell School, and I'm talking to them about food security, about soils and carbon. We're looking at flood management, and we're linking this all through to the circular economy. This is the kind of lesson I'm doing also with the economics and management undergraduates in Oxford, and with MBA students. And everybody finds this really interesting. It's a really good way to connect why nature is important to the human economy. It's also really interesting how when you take kids outside, and many teachers report on this, is that you're developing skills which are really relevant to the economy. Businesses these days say they're lacking skills in new entrants. And these are exactly the sorts of skills that kids develop when you teach them outside in nature. And I picked four examples here. One of them is about resilience and thriving, the idea that I can cope when things go wrong, and also nature is relaxing and something I can use. Relational skills, seeing each other in a different light, working and caring together. You can create fantastic bonds really quickly by just doing something a bit different and taking kids outside into a different environment. Thinking skills, it's really so much easier to teach systems thinking, connections, critical thinking, problem solving in a different environment. The classroom really doesn't lend itself very well to this. And practical skills such as horticulture and ecology. And I also add electronics in there because having spent a long time at Whiteham, I know there's a heck of a lot of tech out there looking at nature. And I added this in this slide in about a student mapping exercise I did in support of this Oxford Nature Park idea with a group of students from the Charwell School. It was an Oxford German exchange program, and these were some of the quotes that the kids said, which I thought were really meaningful. And these were year 12, so they're 17 years old. And Mia said, I noticed things that I wouldn't have been able to notice otherwise. So I learned more about the area around me. Alexandra said it was an eye-opening experience as it made me see the area that I'm very familiar with in a new light as we were looking, sharing, and documenting things I'd pay no attention to. So what I'd asked them to do is to go out into the local area, and I'd given them these printed off maps and just notice the trees, the ivy covered fences and walls, any sort of scruffy areas that might be good for nature. And they really threw themselves into this and they made little keys on their maps and marked up the areas. And this information then is going to go on our kind of base map. Marlene said this shared experience of discussing and being in nature helped to bridge the cultural gap because we realised we had much in common. This is between the German and the Oxford students. Charlotte said, I love being proud of my school and my peers and being able to show the German students what we've created in our ecology garden at school. And Gabriel from Germany said, I enjoyed taking part in the Oxford Nature Park mapping project. It was exciting to walk through the city and look at nature with different eyes. I'd never thought that ivy-covered houses or wild corners as something as important, and now I do. If you want to read more about that, there's a link there. Because there's a blog that the teachers from Germany wrote. Now I'm going to hand over to Evelyn.
Thanks, Kim. So Kim suggested that I might use the horse fields in Italy as a case study of urban green space under threat and why residents, visitors, schools all value them so much and wish to take action to save them. The horse fields campaign has been going now about 5 years. We've had huge support, 60,000 signatures on the petition, an unprecedented 1,000 objections to the planning application, and ongoing high levels of engagement with local nature recovery strategy consultation and local plan consultations. And really interestingly, support and engagement from the 5 local schools and the Sea Scouts who are within walking distance. And these images give a flavour of that engagement with an educational slant. So on the left is Lindsay Caldwell, who's the head of Greyfriars School, standing in the meadow and giving an interview to the ITV Meridian. And on the right is one of the Badger Oxford, one of the workshops we did in a local school with the Oxfordshire Badger Group. Next slide. So I thought it'd be useful to set out, why do local people want to save these meadows? Well, the abundant, we analysed the 1,000 consultation responses and came up with the top 4 reasons. And the first, by a long way, is people's recognition of the abundant biodiversity in these 2.5 acres of ancient meadow which have never been ploughed. And the assessments now done show that the biodiversity is sufficient to qualify as a city wildlife site, and as an indicator of that, more than 630 different species of invertebrates, some of them rare county-wide and nationally. And often untouched urban green spaces are more biodiverse than the surrounding countryside. And this particular meadow sits along the Thames and Cherwell corridors, and also the east-west link between Shotover and Hinksey. So it helps connect other small pockets of green in the city. People love the rural character of Iffley. It's within the conservation area, and it gives a real history of sense and place, and the lanes that surround this meadow are part of an ancient drover's route. It's been designated as a principal quiet route for active travel. It's tranquil and safe. People love using it, both for the nature connection, but also for the feeling of community that we get on the lanes. And this is a picture of the Feet First initiative we did with a local academic who visited and wanted to do a project, and we all chalked our feet. Everybody who used the lane chalked their feet and wrote down why they loved walking there. Next slide. So why do schools value this as an opportunity for outdoor education? We approached the 5 local schools. There are 3 primaries, 1 secondary, that's Greyfriars, and 1 special needs school, Iffley Academy. These are the main reasons. The levels of disadvantage around the communities in Iffley, the catchment areas of these schools are really surprisingly large. 36% of students either qualify for free school meals or are statemented. And here are some quotes from Rosehill. Our children have wonderful academic and creative capacity, but often very limited life experiences, including interactions with nature. And we know from Martha's mapping that this is the case, and also from new data which shows that most children, or many children nowadays, get their outside time at school. So having nature education could really start to address this. Mental and physical health, obesity levels are really high. In Rosehill in year 6, 40% of children, which is way above the national average. Many children and families are struggling to manage their mental health, and greater interaction with nature, we know, would improve physical and mental health. And there are the educational and skills opportunities. Challenging behaviour in the classroom often disappears when these children can be role models with everything to contribute in a different context. a comment from Greyfriars: opening up this Meadow School link as a local nature resource will provide a curriculum that will enrich the lives of our children. Most of the schools also stress the fact that children feel excluded and marginalised and disconnected. Oxford is seen by many as a city of spires, but for many it is also a city of walls. Increased engagement with local areas of nature and fostering a feeling that this is not something they are excluded from, but something they can enjoy and nurture over time, gaining a sense of belonging. And this is particularly relevant for local, hyperlocal spaces that can be accessed or could be accessed frequently through the seasons and over the years to build that connection. SS Mary and John stated that if we had a place locally, knowing that there would be trained volunteers on a safe site, and they described doing needle sweeps of non-dedicated sites to make sure the children are safe before they go, it would be such a richly used resource. All the children would be able to visit at no cost to parents or the school. So just in summary, our next steps in terms of the campaign are to talk with decision makers about and to demonstrate the additional value as a dedicated educational resource here, both by collecting, co-creating a Meadow School proposal with communities and educators, but also using a short film that we've made of Peggy Seeger's song and with her collaboration with a local award-winning filmmaker, Nicholas Brown, who used to work with David Attenborough, to support the context that we find ourselves in, and that thinking global means acting local and taking action together. Thank you.
Thanks, Evelyn. So I think that's a really, before I go on to this, a really fantastic example of the way that sort of citizens can get together and actually just sort of take things into their own hands. I don't think we can wait to kind of push up through policy and for the people who have power to do what we need to do. I think some of us need to take this into our own hands, and the more that we can do is constructive and positive, that is also solving other social issues as well as protecting nature. I think probably has some merit. So our next steps for the nature park, when I wrote this, I thought we weren't quite sure about the title, but I think we've kind of landed on Oxford Nature Park now, and the scope, what we're trying to achieve with this. I think that'll be ongoing for a while. We'd love to sort of have people involved with us to create some sort of task force to collaborate on it. We've had quite a few people involved supporting us already. Wild Oxfordshire have been thrown their hat in the ring to support us. We've had people kind of coming forward to talk about mapping, which is great because we know nothing about it. So we need to get on with this mapping and do information gathering, which I'm hoping we can do through schools, through kids doing Duke of Edinburgh, through local community groups. There's kind of lots of energy gathering around this. We obviously will at some point want to apply for funding and finding more support. We want to engage with the anchor organisations across the city and to get them involved, and landowners to get them involved. And then look at this nature education strategy across Oxfordshire, not just within Oxford itself. As I said before, connecting teachers with nature educators, the local authority, and also business organisations. So that's all we were going to say. But the next slide is all to ask you for questions and ideas, and the links of where you can find more details that we've written on the Oxford Earth Academy website. I'll stop sharing.